Hi everyone, it's Kaiser Ryu here. It's been 13 years since the last mainline Ninja Gaiden game came out with NG3 back in 2012. A disaster in every regard that even 8 months later when the enhanced version, Razor's Edge, released, it still didn't click for most people, me included. I fucking love the first two Ninja Gaiden games, specifically Ninja Gaiden Black and Ninja Gaiden 2 on Xbox 360. I put hundreds of hours into them, beat them on the highest difficulty multiple times, and they're the gods of the action game genre, in my opinion. You know in Deadpool and Wolverine, when Deadpool calls himself Marvel Jesus? Well, Ninja Gaiden 1 and 2 are the action game Jesuses for me, and I know plenty of others. When the 2025 Xbox Developer Direct started, I frankly didn't want a new Ninja Gaiden game. I wanted a new Dead or Alive, and I know others felt the same way about a possible NG4. I want to show a clip from a video Roy made about the Ninja Gaiden Master Collection. He's the person behind Stinger magazine, if you do not know, that I think tells a lot about Ninja Gaiden 4, not only pre-release, but now that the game's out.
Should this lead to an NG4? Personally, I would say no. And I really believe there should be no Ninja Gaiden 4 under any circumstances. And the reason I don't feel Ninja Gaiden 4 should be made is because the people that made Ninja Gaiden don't work there anymore. And speaking as someone who works in the creative industry himself, not in video games, but creative, it really sucks if you have to work on a project that isn't yours, that you weren't a part of the creative process at the first time. You could already see that with Ninja Gaiden 3, that they really wanted to give it their own twist, because those guys aren't there anymore. We're going to sort of twist it into something we want to do. And that just crashed and burned.
Yeah, that hits quite true, because Ninja Gaiden 4 is out now, and it's inferior to the classics in virtually every regard. This game did not need to be made, plain and simple. What Platinum Games did was that they created an entirely new action title, but added in Ninja Gaiden fundamentals, seemingly because, well, that's what fans wanted. However, they did not know why those elements worked in the first place, because every element taken from the OG games is poorly handled here. Let's get into it. First off, let's dive into a common criticism of Ninja Gaiden 4, and that's the story. Yeah, it's pretty bad, although I will say it is at least superior to NG3's story. NG4 isn't as cutscene heavy as NG3, with the bulk of the long cutscenes happening early on. Now, what really kills the story here is the atrocious English voice acting. It's astounding that video game voice acting has transformed so much since the mid-2000s, but those games from nearly, 20 years ago curb-stomped this one like no tomorrow. The main protagonist, Yakumo, is so annoying, talking way too damn much for info that's completely unnecessary.
This should be it.
The voice actor tries to put on that tough guy voice, but he often sounds bored out of his mind.
Must be another way in.
All the characters in general talk way too much, where it becomes annoying. I've been playing Serious Sam 4 again recently, great shooter by the way, and yes, Sam and his buddies do talk a lot, but he's actually funny and a joy to listen to, even if a lot of his conversations is quite unnecessary. Very quickly, I switched over to Japanese voices, because I just could not stand the English ones. However, it's a double-edged sword, because since a bulk of the dialogue comes during gameplay, you're often too busy dealing with fools to read it. And no, this was not present in the classic games, besides some enemy intercom lines. Okay, so the story is an absolute bust. However, Ninja Gaiden always excelled in the gameplay, an area that NG4 fails to deliver on. Let's get the most glaring problem out of the way right now, the targeting. It's astounding to me that NG4 consistently received 8 out of 10s from gaming outlets when the targeting is this fucking bad. The targeting alone should drop the score to a 7. It flat out doesn't work. So many times you'll charge a UT and Ryu or Yakumo will, instead of targeting the nearest enemy, will try to attack a guy from the other side of the arena he can't even reach. That's a clip from Roy, but I have one even worse. There literally wasn't anybody there. I mean, Ryu just flew in the other direction for no reason. I really hope the losers that demanded Ninja Gaiden to have lock-on for so many years are happy about themselves, because NG4 now has lock-on, and the targeting is worse than a now over 20-year-old game. Don't get me wrong, Ninja Gaiden 1 and 2 didn't have perfect targeting, but it worked, 95% of the time, whereas in this game, I don't think it even worked half. I mean, it's that unreliable. Now I know that targeting as well as other issues can be fixed with patches or when the inevitable DLC comes out, but I don't care. An action game must work fundamentally on release. Even Wanted Dead, which crashed a lot, still had those fundamentals at launch. It wasn't broken mechanically like this game is. Another huge problem I have is the economy of this game. Money doesn't mean shit. Combat skills and items are the only things you can spend ninja coins on. Your weapon skills are bought solely with experience points, which I think is a fundamental flaw. At the start of the game, there's a lot of combat skills, but they dry up pretty quickly, with the rest locked until later chapters. This means you will have a shit ton of money to spend on items, so you can drip feed health and buffs the entire game. In the older titles, there was only one type of currency, and on Master Ninja, items cost so much that you really couldn't afford to do that tactic of abusing healing items. Well, unless you grinded for cash in NGB anyway. NG4 tries to balance this out by penalizing you for using items at the end ranking, but it doesn't even matter because if you do the right tactics in combat, you can use 10 plus items and still get Master Ninja rank. You'll have a lot of coin too because of the chests, another problem I have. In the older games, chest drops varied between the difficulty levels, and in NG2 it even had a dynamic chest system. Let's say a chest has a grain in it. If you have max grains already, it would give you money equal to the value of that item in the shop, but only if you have max health. If you don't have max health, it will give you health orbs, which was an awesome feature. NG4 doesn't do that. If you have max items, it will give you money every time. Plus, chests are the exact same on every difficulty level. Heck, even the item prices are the same on all difficulties as well, which at that point I dropped out. This is a basic design element made to push players on Master Ninja. In Ninja Gaiden 2, you had to work for your money to get the upgrades and items because of how expensive they were. I mean, for most players, it's impossible to drip feed health the entire game because of the prices. It made you play better and made items as a last resort instead of a crutch. The old team at Team Ninja knew this, but not Platinum. Another annoying thing about the items is the Lives of 1,000 Gods equivalent. In all NG titles past 2, including NG4, upon getting your health upgrade, it would immediately be used. In NG2, you could use a Lives of 1,000 Gods like any other healing item, meaning you could get a full refill on health, plus more in any situation you want. This was awesome and far more interesting, saving those lives until you absolutely needed it. But of course, NG4 can't do that because fuck player choice. Same thing with the Berserk gauge, which will always drain after a set period of time. This means once it's filled up, you're essentially forced to use it in most scenarios, because you'll lose it anyway once the fight's over. I hate stuff like this, where you're pushed into doing the same thing each and every time, where it would be far more interesting to have the meter stay full, so you can save it for a later encounter. Let's talk about the Bloodbind gauge, because this is another aspect that just doesn't work when applied to a staple feature of Ninja Gaiden. The Bloodbind gauge is vital to the combat, and you can build it up in various ways, including doing nothing at all. Yes, the gauge fills up on its own over time, a big action game no-no that I guarantee the original dev team would not approve of. However, it's fairly well balanced for Yakumo, as you still need to get up close and personal for the big Bloodbind gauge moves. However, once you swap over to Ryu, this gauge breaks completely. Platinum brought back Ryu's powerful Nimpo, and Nimpo uses meter from the Bloodbind gauge. Yeah, this doesn't work. You cannot bring back Nimpo and use it with a meter that builds on its own, especially in Ninja Gaiden 4, where arenas are often the size of a football field and you can easily stall. I mean, Nimpo worked in the old games because of the Nimpo orbs. Even in Ninja Gaiden 2, where there were so many enemies, getting Nimpo orbs was all about luck. In Chapter 11, you could win blades through, many of the fights, but getting Nimpo orbs back was never guaranteed. I tried to do that, and many times I would get no red orbs, forcing me to try something else or use a devil mushroom if I was really desperate. Having a Nimpo meter build over time is such an atrocious design decision that it boggles my mind, especially because you can play the entirety of New Game Plus as Ryu. Ryu is insanely busted in this game, and despite having the same accessories on him, I can confirm that he takes less damage than Yakumo and hits harder too. I mean, the original Ninja Gaiden team, or heck, even the DMC team, would not allow you to use other main characters on stages they're not meant to be at. Platinum doesn't seem to care about game balance, however. Another huge issue with the combat is the UT system, and for the longest time I couldn't nail down exactly what was wrong with it until I reached out to some community members. The older games punished you through money, as you would get next to nothing UT chaining, but even if that was the case, money doesn't mean shit in NG4. You get health orbs UT chaining here, breaking the inherent design of the classics, but the health orbs don't give you much anyway. The extra damage you take while UT charging in NG2 isn't present here, but enemies hit so hard in Master Ninja, it wouldn't really matter. It's clearly broken though, because you can get through the hardest trials UT chaining the entire way through. Beating Test of Valor 1 in Master Ninja just by UT chaining is nearly impossible. I sure couldn't do it, so what's the problem? After reaching out, I pieced it all together, and it's because of two factors: movement and risk. On-landing UTs through Essence is reliably safe every time in Ninja Gaiden 4. While performing a whiffed UT, you can get out of it super fast by dodging like normal, and the distance you get from a single jump into on-landing is far more than in Ninja Gaiden 2. In Ninja Gaiden 2, you have so many recovery frames from a whiffed UT that it spells some serious trouble, and a simple jump into on-landing would never leave you too out of reach from an enemy. That's why it's always safer to wind path on enemies' heads into on-landing UT, but even then other enemies can tag you. There's even a decent amount of recovery frames after landing a UT, allowing IS ninjas to pelt you with incendiaries. It's just so safe in Ninja Gaiden 4, whereas in NG2, as I said before, UT chaining Test of Valor 1 Master Ninja is damn near impossible because of how much you will get tagged when doing on-landing UTs. Cold charging is still just as risky, but the risk from Essence charging is essentially gone. To boot, Essence UTs are heavily encouraged and overpowered because, unlike cold charge UTs, they are unblockable. Certain enemies and bosses block cold charge UTs, but Essence UTs will always hit if it connects, further pushing the player towards UTing every time an Essence appears. Again, these specific nuances prove to me that Platinum Games just did not get what made Ninja Gaiden work in such a masterpiece of an action title. Take the guillotine throw move, a Ninja Gaiden staple. Very useful in all the games, Platinum once again made it broken here due to the level design. Ninja Gaiden 4 has bottomless pits everywhere. They're probably in every level. That's a huge problem because you can actually get through a huge chunk of the fights in this game just by throwing all the enemies into a pit. This wasn't the case in the originals because the dev team knew what the fuck they were doing when making levels around the combat. I can't think of many areas you can do this tactic in the original 2 games, besides a couple areas with water pits. Coming off of Ninja Gaiden 2, another aspect that sucks to be missing is pummeling dead bodies. In Ninja Gaiden 2, once an enemy was dead, you could continue to attack it for extra karma points, more money, and even decapitated enemies could still be OT'd. That was a great feature that added even more fun to an already phenomenal combat system. Of course, NG4 has to transition to the no-fun zone by removing said feature. One last annoyance with the combat is the terrible submission/trial start screen that freezes the action for a good few seconds, meaning you can't do anything until the screen goes away. This can cause unavoidable damage if you kill one of the exploding enemies at the end of a wave, which is pure bullshit. Why can't it just be at the corner of the screen and let the action continue? It's so frustrating. The level design is another common criticism, and in terms of combat arenas, that's absolutely true. There's rarely any enclosed spaces like that prison tunnel in Ninja Gaiden 2 Chapter 8, where you're just so boxed in. Most of it is football arenas, which not only get stale after a while, but wrecks a few combat aspects like the previously mentioned NIMPO system and UT system. Another reason why UTs are so safe, is how big these arenas are. Enclosed spaces like Ninja Gaiden 2 would make UTs much less reliable as a consistent game-winning tactic. Let's talk about the graphics and the technical aspects. The animation quality is actually pretty good and on par with Platinum standards, although I hate the way blood looks. It looks too pink, and it's wild that Ninja Gaiden 2, a game that's, nearly 20 years old, has better looking blood and gore visuals than this 2025 title. The game looks gorgeous for the most part and runs pretty good on Xbox Series X. Definitely a lot better than Ninja Gaiden 2 on launch with its slow motion fights. The sound design also fails in my opinion. Look at the Dark Dragon Blade. That sounds like a normal sword instead of the heavy weapon it should be. Look at NGB. That sounds way more powerful. All the weapons in NG4 sound lackluster. I mean, still to this day, I remember the Ninja Gaiden 2 Tonfa hitting sound because of how crunchy and satisfying it was. Nothing like that in NG4. Some other points here. The music is incredible, no doubt about that. It rocks hard, just like Metal Gear Rising. Like DMC4, the game reuses some levels, which I hate. Ninja Gaiden never really did that, and when it did reuse levels, it would add additional areas to explore. Chapter 11 in Ninja Gaiden 2, over half of it was brand new areas. That's not the case with Ninja Gaiden 4. Some of the boss fights are phenomenal as well, particularly ones near the end, which have to be the highlight of the entire game by far. So that's all I have to say about Ninja Gaiden 4, and I want to end with this. If you look at the later James Bond games and look back at their critic reviews, you'll notice a common sentiment. Well, it's no GoldenEye. That's Ninja Gaiden 4 in a nutshell. It sure as shit ate Ninja Gaiden 1 or 2. Is Ninja Gaiden 4 a solid action game on its own merit? Yes. However, it's fucking called Ninja Gaiden. I expect Platinum to take Ninja Gaiden 1 and 2, learn from them, and improve. But no, this game is inferior in every way to the classics. The only huge positive compared to the older games is the accessibility options, training room, photo mode, all that good stuff typical in modern video games. There's a reason why Xbox stated that their main competition now is movies and TV and TikTok, because games constantly fight consumers for their time. Why in the world would I play Ninja Gaiden 4 over the first two? Yeah, none. There's no reason. I played hundreds of hours in Ninja Gaiden 1 and 2 while only beating NG3, twice? And I expect something similar with NG4. In my humble opinion, I would have loved to see Soleil tackle this game instead of Platinum. I know Platinum is the de facto action game studio these days, but I think Soleil deserved to work on this title, given they're the original dev team that made Ninja Gaiden what it is, understands how everything works and connects with one another. Plus, if movies and TV often brings back the original creators for the latest project, like the upcoming Saw film or Scary Movie, why can't video games do the same? I'll tell you right now, Soleil would have made a much better game that stayed true to the fundamentals of the series than this. I would not be surprised if Ninja Gaiden goes on hiatus again for 12 years based on this game, and even though the upcoming DLC is on the horizon, I suspect my feelings won't change that much. That's about it. Comment down below what you think about Ninja Gaiden 4, and make sure to like and subscribe for more content. I'll see you later.